Hello, good evening everyone. I hope you all are doing well. Just confirm in the chat box if I'm audible or not. Give me a thumbs up in the chat box if my voice is clear. Fine, so there is no problem with the voice. So hello everyone, welcome to another session of Perspective 360 degree where we do current affair based answer writing practice for various competitive exams like RBI, NABARD, IRDI, etc. And in this session we are going to discuss again the economic survey. You know that we are discussing economic survey these days, and we are trying our best to cover those components that are relevant as far as your exam is concerned. Fine. So today we are going to talk about geo-economic fragmentation and global trade, and from which chapter I have taken this context with respect to this topic. So this is chapter number 5, which is medium term outlook, deregulation drives economic growth. Over here the economic survey in a detailed manner, it talks about this idea of geo-economic fragmentation that we are witnessing at the global level, and it also talks about the implications that such a type of fragmentation could have on India. So firstly we are going to talk about what is geo-economic fragmentation, and then we will see that what could be the different implication of this fragmentation process as far as the Indian economy is concerned. Fine. So we are going to do it in a step-by-step manner, and I hope the agenda for today is pretty much clear to all of you. So without wasting any time, let us begin with the session. So this is our expected question for today. Now if you are somebody who is new to this Perspective 360 initiative, just let me tell you that over here we firstly discuss a certain topic, and then we are going to give you a question based on that, and then you have to write the answer to this question in the comment box. That will be evaluated by our team within 48 hours. Fine. So this is the overall, I would say, agenda of this Perspective 360 degree series, where you can get your answer evaluated, and you can also compare your answer with the answer of the fellow aspirants. Fine. Now let us move on to the answer to this question, and the question states that geo-economic fragmentation driven by political tensions and trade barriers threatens India's global prospects. Discuss. And you have to write the answer to the question within 400 words, which carry 10 marks. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now if we talk about firstly the introduction of this question, before that let me just give you a brief highlight regarding what do we understand by geo-economic fragmentation. Now when we talk about geo-economic fragmentation, and if we break down this term into small keywords, the first term is geo. Geo basically means what? We all know geo means global. Geo means global. Economic, we all know the meaning of economic is related to economy only, and if we talk about fragmentation, it basically means breaking into pieces. Breaking into pieces. Now if we talk about geo-economic fragmentation, it basically represents that the world economies begin to break into separate pieces, which basically represents that the different countries that are there in the world, they have started isolating their interest. What type of interest they have started isolating? For example, their economic activities. It can be the economic activities of different countries. It can also be with respect to the trade among different type of countries at the global level. Then it can also be related to investment flows. It can be related to technology, and it can be related to supply chains also. So whatever it is, basically it represents that the countries have started isolating their different type of interest from others. And what is the reason behind it? Why the countries have following such an approach? With the economic surveys highlighting that the geopolitical fragmentation in the recent times, it is increasing. We will talk about the data also, but the question is why it is happening. It is mainly because of different type of reasons. For example, the mistrust between countries. It can also be because of the rivalry. It can also be because of the ideological differences among different type of countries. Fine, for example, the US and the Russia dispute that is there, it has been a long term dispute, and the one of the biggest reason is the ideology that they carry, the political ideology between the different countries. Apart from that, if you talk about the rivalry, the US China the recent trade war that we have been witnessing, that could be an example of that. Fine, regarding the mistrust, you can talk about US India also, and apart from that US Mexico and Canada, which is because of the mistrust. Just because we have imposed the tax on the certain products of US is also countering the same. Fine, so that is because can be, I would say, different type of examples can be written as a part of it, but this is the reason why this process of geo-economic fragmentation has been happening. If you want to summarize it, it is basically nothing but it is a reverse of globalization. Why it is a reverse of globalization? Because when we talk about globalization, what is globalization? Globalization talks about integration of different countries, whereas the geo-economic fragmentation, it talks about the fragmentation of different countries into small pieces based on the ideologies, or based on the rivalry, whatever XYZ the reason is. And due to that, what basically happens, the world economies, what they do, they start isolating their interest, and this is what the term geo-economic fragmentation means. A very, I would say, popular term, but has been used in economic survey. Fine, so we will talk about it. So let us see based on that how we can write the introduction of this question. So basically, geo-economic fragmentation refers to a situation where the world's economic landscape becomes increasingly divided due to political, strategic or economic factors. Fine, because of the XYZ different type of factors, a situation of geo-economic fragmentation may happen. Then it marks a shift away from global economic integration towards a more fragmented world order. Apart from that, this process is driven by global geopolitical tensions, trade conflicts and national interests overriding global cooperation. So this is something I just explained you, that what is geopolitical fragmentation, and this is what we have written as a part of the introduction also. Then the rising economic and political tensions exemplified by the trade war between the US and China, sanctions and restrictions on critical technologies, it have exacerbated the geo-economic fragmentation. Fine, so that is the idea. That is how we can say that geo-economic fragmentation can be I would say a problematic factor at the global level, especially in the long run, and we will talk about it, that what could be the different type of impacts related to it. But I hope the idea up till here is pretty much clear to all of you. Now let us move on to the body part. Let us talk about the body, that how basically what could be the different type of implications of this geo-economic fragmentation for India. Now the first reason, as highlighted in the economic survey, is related to impact on global trade and investment flows. So the economic survey says that the increase in the trade barriers at the worldwide level, it basically means that the countries have started imposing more and more restrictions on imports and exports. If we talk about the data as highlighted in the economic survey, it has said that from mid-October 2023 to October 2024, 169 new trade restrictive measures have been introduced at the global level. So you can see the numbers have been increasing if we compare it with the previous year trends. Then impacting trade worth USD 887 billion. Fine, so this is, you can see, has been the impact because of this different type of restrictions at the global level. That has promoted the geo-economic fragmentation at the global level. Now, do you have to remember these numbers? The answer is no. You don't have to remember these numbers. The only thing that you can remember as a part of it is this 169. That would be sufficient. That 169 new trade restrictive measures have been added. You don't have to remember these complex numbers, otherwise you will get overburdened. Fine, as a part of your preparation. Then the World Trade Organization, very importantly, it highlights that the growing trend which may reduce the trade incentives and hinder the productivity growth that global integration has traditionally supported. So the World Trade Organization has also acknowledged this thing, that gradually what is happening, we are shifting towards the trend of geo-economic fragmentation. What could be the impact on India's exports? So we all know that India's export, India is hugely dependent on trade in order to boost its economic growth. So of course, if such kind of fragmentation measures, such kind of protectionist measures will be introduced at the global level, then it is going to hinder India's integration into global market, and apart from that, it will reduce its access to knowledge diffusion. For example, related to the sharing of technology, it can be regarding intellectual property rights, also sort of thing, different type of knowledge diffusion process that is there at the global level, that is also going to get hindered. It is going to get hampered. Fine, so that is the idea regarding the impact on India with respect to the global trade and investment flows. The second point is regarding the FDI concentration. Now, as per economic survey, the economic survey says that as a part of this geopolitical fragmentation, the FDI among different nations, it is guided by geopolitical alignment. Geopolitical alignment. So basically it says that those countries that are allies with each other, they tend to share their, I would say, technologies, share their resources with each other, whereas those countries who do not share the same ideology, what does it lead to? They are not going to share their technological resources and all such type of things regarding the investments in such type of countries. So that all again boosts such kind of geopolitical fragmentation as a part of the global economy, and this also reduces the global spread of investment, which is of course I would say an unhealthy sign. Now if you talk about the example, what could be the example of that? You must have heard about the term friendshoring. Have you heard about friendshoring? Friendshoring basically means countries, they shift their supply chains towards political allies or trusted parties. So that is what we understand by this term friendshoring. Now what we have been witnessing at the global level, we have been witnessing in the recent times the friendshoring of this semiconductor manufacturing. Now among which countries we are able to witness this friendshoring? Basically we are able to witness this between the US and its allies. Who are the allies of the US who are involved in this semiconductor friendshoring? It is basically Taiwan. Fine. It is European Union also. It is Japan also. Fine. And apart from that, the South Korea also. So all these are, I would say, the allies of US, and somewhere internally they have prioritized the semiconductor investments into geopolitically aligned. Fine, in a geopolitically aligned manner. So that is something that what do we understand by friendshoring? But the question is that at the global level, is it a healthy sign? The answer is no. It is not a healthy sign, because what about the countries like India that are developing countries, and we know the importance of semiconductor in today's world scenario, where they are very much importantly needed in order to manufacture the chips. The whole nanotechnology, I would say, is very much dependent on the semiconductors, and they act as a very important source for that. So we cannot imagine, I would say, the future without the availability of semiconductor, and semiconductor is something that is a very critical resource. So if this kind of friendshoring trend continues at the global level, where only the allied countries they are helping each other, so what about those countries where we are witnessing the emerging markets, for example the India? Fine. So what basically happens, what could be the impact of India with respect to it? So many emerging markets and developing economies, including India, struggle to attract essential foreign investment because of such type of strategies that are adopted between different type of countries. Fine. Where those countries that are geopolitically aligned with each other, they basically help themselves, they are basically involved in their own I would say zonal type of integration. So that could be another idea with respect to it. Now you can see this important news articles also regarding this TSMC. TSMC is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, and you can see that TSMC to set up Arizona investment to $40 billion with second semiconductor chip plant, where we can see that how this TSMC is which is one of the largest chip manufacturing company. Basically what it is doing, it is increasing its investment in US. Why is it so? Because US is an ally of Taiwan. Fine. So that is the idea, but what at the same time what it is doing, it is limiting the options for the emerging markets. So I hope this point is also clear to you. Now the third point is regarding the energy transition and dependency on China. Now the thing is that we know that India has a country, has its own targets. Fine, we have our own targets regarding the energy transition goals. Fine, be it related to renewable energy, or it is related to electric vehicle targets also. Fine, whatever targets we have at the national level, or whatever international commitments we have at the global level. Fine. So that is the idea regarding it. But the thing is that the problem is that India as a nation is hugely dependent. It is hugely dependent on China for the imports. Fine. And imports of what? Imports of, I would say, those kind of, I would say, raw material or products that will help India to reach its ambitious energy transition goals. Now this is problematic because what does it make India? It makes India a vulnerable country. It makes India vulnerable to potential supply chain disruptions. So that could be, I would say, that could hamper India in a long run. And what India should do, India should promote is some kind of self-reliance, or India should at least try to reduce its reliance over China. Fine. So that it can grow grow in an independent manner in the long run. So that is the point that has been highlighted as a part of economic survey, that a particularly critical aspect of geopolitical fragmentation for India is the dependency on China for energy transition technologies and critical minerals. Now China is something that is very much dominant in supply chain for key resources such as the solar panels, the electric vehicle batteries, the rare earth minerals, that puts India in a challenging position or in a vulnerable position. So what does the data says? The data says that over 60% of the world's solar panel production and nearly 80% of the EV battery production capacity lies within China's border, and that is why what India needs to do, India need to find ways to reduce the over reliance on Chinese resources. Fine. So that is the idea that is again highlighted as a part of economic survey. The next is regarding impact of technological decoupling and supply chain disruptions. Now, what do we mean by technological decoupling? Basically, it is a process where countries or regions, they move away from, the countries or regions move away from economic, or you can say economic or mutual dependency. Fine. And what they do basically, by moving away from that, they begin to promote their own technical systems. They start promoting their own technical system instead of following the path of this mutual dependency. Fine. And what does it lead to? This is basically primarily driven by the geopolitical tensions. For example, as we are witnessing between the US and China, let us try to understand it with the help of an example, because it was very much recently there in news. We know that how this decoupling is happening between US and China, where both of them are focused on their self-sufficiency only. Fine. So that they can reduce the reliance on each other. And as a result, what the world is witnessing at this point of time, the world is witnessing US bloc and Chinese bloc. Fine. US bloc and Chinese bloc, where both the countries have their own separate ecosystems. Both have their separate ecosystems with respect to different type of technologies. For example, the 5G technology, or you can say quantum computing, the cloud computing, the artificial intelligence, the semiconductor technology, different kind of things, the advancements that are there. But both the countries have their own, I would say, separate ecosystem. But what is the, I would say, the threatening factor with respect to it? What is the unhealthy impact of this kind of approach? The unhealthy impact is that this limits this two block to potential for global collaboration and technology. Because when these two blocks, they will work in a very independent, in a very separate manner, what is going to happen? It limits the innovation at the global scale. Fine. The potential for the global collaboration or in technology, it is going to go down. So that is, I would say, is the limitation with respect to that, which is nothing but the impact of the decoupling of the technological ecosystem. Fine. So let us read the slide. So it says, the economic survey says that the growing decoupling of technological system has led to formation of technology blocks, with the US and China leading competing camps in sector like semiconductor, 5G, AI. India, as an emerging economy, it risks being caught between these two blocks. Why India is caught between these two blocks? Because India is heavily reliant on Chinese imports. Fine. India is heavily reliant on China as well as the US also. We have good relations with US. We have good relations with US. We are hugely we are usually involved with US in terms of trade, and as well as with China also. Fine. China is our neighbor. So that is why we are caught between both these blocks. And if this kind of approach, it continues in future, it can create challenge for India, because tomorrow the US might say that if India been involved in trade and all this type of technological agreements with China, then we are going to impose sanctions on India. US can say that, because US has already done it in the past in context to Russia, when India wanted to buy defense equipment from Russia. For example, S-400, then US imposed sanctions on India that India need to, get done with this. India should not involve with US in any kind of such, India should not involve with Russia with any kind of such defense equipment trades. So it can do in the future with respect to China also. So India is caught between these two blocks. So what we need to do, we need to have our own domestic, technological innovations, so that in a long run we become self-reliant, and we do not get hugely impacted because of such kind of technological decoupling, and we do not get impacted because of such kind of supply chain disruptions also. So this is something I would say could be the way forward for India in context to this challenge. The next is regarding the global output loss from fragmentation. So regarding this, the IMF says that it has estimated that the geo-economic fragmentation, it could lead to global output losses ranging from 0.2% as high as 7% of global GDP. In a high cost fragmentation scenario, these losses could escalate even further, impacting countries like India, which depend on external trade and investment from growth. We know that India is heavily dependent on external trade in order to do its economic growth. Fine. So if any kind of disruption is there, what is going to do? It is going to increase the cost of Indian businessmen. Fine, which is directly or indirectly is going to impact the Indian economy. So that is the idea regarding it, and this estimate by, I would say, IMF regarding the geo-economic fragmentation, India can get affected because of that in future. So what India needs to do? India needs to promote self-reliance as much as possible, so that we can boost innovation in our own technological output. So that is the, I would say, the way forward with respect to India. Now coming to the conclusion part, so the geo-economic fragmentation poses challenges for India, including trade barriers, concentrated FDI, and dependence on China for key resources. To overcome these, India must enhance domestic growth, boost investment efficiency, foster innovation, simplify regulations, and build resilient supply chains, especially in critical technologies. So what we have done, firstly we have said that yes, India, this GEF, it is posing different kind of challenges for India, and these are the few types of challenges that are there, and how India can overcome it. Over here, what we can write some kind of way forward as a part of our conclusion. Fine. So I hope it is clear to you regarding the conclusion also. And now we are done with the session, and this is the answer blueprint that you need to follow while writing your answer, where you will divide your answer into introduction, body, and conclusion. Introduction should be around 10 to 12% of the total word limit, and the same rule for the conclusion. And lastly, rest of the word limit shall be dedicated to body part, where you will write your body using these headings and subheadings and these type of points. Fine. And apart from that, try to add value to your answer by providing data, facts, or relevant examples. Fine. So as we have discussed multiple examples in this answer, you can incorporate it as a part of your answer. Now this is the question, the answer of which you have to write in the comment box. The deadline is 48 hours. So within 48 hours, you have to write your answer, 48 hours, 5 p.m. so that your answer gets evaluated. So that is it from our end. Thank you so much and all the best. Here you have these EduTap blogs, where you can find different range of competitive articles which will help you in your preparation. Fine. So this is the idea. I hope it is pretty much clear to you. Now let me see the, I would say, chat box if there is something. Yes, the example of Greenland is also good. Swapnil has written the example of Greenland, how Donald Trump, he wanted to, I would say, dominate Greenland, but he was not able to do that. Fine, because of the multiple reasons that are there in the news. Apart from that, there was a news related to Panama also. Fine. So US wants to gain access with respect to Panama Canal. That can also be an example of that. So yes, Swapnil, your point is also very much relevant. Apart from that, this Panama Canal was also there in news, so you can write that also. Apart from that, you must have heard about the interference of US in the Middle East regarding this Israel and Palestine. So you must have heard about the recent Donald Trump policy regarding the Palestine. What is the solution that he has proposed? So that can also be an example of that. There are multiple type of examples that you can use directly or indirectly, but I hope the point is pretty much clear to you. Anyone else? Any other question or doubt? Fine. So I cannot find anything in the chat box. So thank you so much and all the best. So with your permission, now I am ending the session.